We all have these thoughts at our weakest moments. What if this person who's important to me is texting this other person and leaving me out of the loop? It's just an extension of, like, are they hanging out without me? Are they talking without me? Which, I mean, I think is kind of an extension of, am I worth hanging out with? So then it's weird when Snapchat tells you, yes, he does message someone more than you. Okay, before we get into this, I want to make sure everyone knows we are going to be talking about social anxiety and how anxiety can be exacerbated by design decisions in our technology that we use every day. So if that is going to be something that you don't want to hear about, please click away and take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Okay, millennial story time. So this was a couple years ago, back when my partner and I had just started dating. This might even have been before we officially started dating. And it was in that phase where we were like hyper aware of each other, just thinking about each other so much. And we were using Snapchat like a lot during that phase. We sent quippy one-off snaps about just like things that we saw around town, and at some point, Snapchat put this little yellow heart indicator beside each other's names in our Snapchat friends list. This is Snapchat's way of signaling we are best friends. I send him the most snaps out of all my friends, and he sends me the most snaps out of all of his friends. And like, I know it's an app, I know it, shouldn't mean a lot to me, but I was like kind of happy when I saw this. It seemed right that we should be wanting to talk to each other more than we talk to other people in this like early honeymoon excited phase of our relationship. After all, we're dating. These are the rules. So after 2 weeks of corny good night and good morning and, oh hey look it's raining, and oh hey look it's sunny, and look at this weird label I saw in the supermarket, we got our next status update, the red heart. Best friends for 2 weeks. So this is an emoji upgrade, and it, felt like a validation, a reaffirmation of the status quo. I agreed with this. I agreed with Snapchat's assessment. Snapchat only has one more level of best friendliness. The coveted, probably by someone, double pink heart. This comes after 2 straight months of Snapchat best friendship. And I remember one day I saw this appear in my Snapchat friends list next to his name, and I was like, we did it, everybody. I didn't need Snapchat to put the seal of approval on my relationship. I didn't need Snapchat to affirm my relationship, but just seeing that little indicator, that external validation that we were super duper best friends, it still felt good. It still made me happy. And then immediately the icon disappeared. It went away. Poof, no more best friends. Just that little happy face that says, you two talk a lot. Reality check. This is a messaging app. It measures your best friendship by messages in and messages out relative to the other people in your friends list. This is not an objective system. Or, well, it is an objective system because Snapchat has objective numbers for how many messages I have sent and to whom, and it knows the same numbers about my partner and everyone in his friends list. But in terms of an objective system to measure our best friendship, no. It's not an objective system. It's not even a good system. If my email tried to measure best friendship by the same metric, I'm pretty sure I would be bestest friends ever with my landlord. Do I even email my partner? So this should not matter. So I was totally caught off guard by how bummed out I was to see that little icon disappear. One day we were best friends, the next day just regular Snapchat friends. It felt like in some weird irrational way we had neglected our friendship or something. There was this little gross voice in my head that I knew was silly, but that kept saying, I wonder who he's messaging more than you. What is he sending to other people that he doesn't also want to send to you? What is Snapchat telling me that my friends aren't? Rationally, we know that's not how it works. That's not how human relationships and human social networks work. One, he has very close friends and family that he doesn't see every day, that he doesn't live in the same city with. So he is likely to be digitally communicating with them more often than he's digitally communicating with me. And by that point, we were going to a lot of places together. We were spending a lot of time together. So it made sense that the more our relationship progressed, the more time we spent together, the less he was sending me snaps. If he saw something funny, chances were increasingly high that I was also there and I saw it too. Two, I think we all have friends that we pretty much exclusively communicate with on certain platforms. I have friends who I exclusively call, exclusively text, exclusively use WhatsApp or Messenger or Discord for. And yeah, Snapchat. I have one college friend who I pretty much exclusively communicate with over Snapchat. We send each other huge blocks of text about like our politics, which is, why do we do that? That's super not what Snapchat is built for. 3, and this one's the most important, the volume of text messages that someone sends to another person cannot be used as the sole basis to make assumptions about their real life relationship. That's the rational side of things. Emotionally, I was still affected, like I was still bummed to see this indicator go away. And I realized that I had started to mythologize this random, semi-arbitrary indicator. I had let it play a role in my feelings and my life and in my relationship in a very minor way, but still, it's a lot of significance for an emoji. And as someone who was working as a UX engineer or a user experience engineer at the time, I was really curious about the effect that this app was having on me. A messaging app should not make me sad. Like, something that somebody says to me over a messaging app might make me sad, but the normal functionality of the app should not be a thing that causes like a negative emotional state, ideally, in my hopefully non-awful person opinion. I know all of this like reading into emojis on Snapchat sounds ridiculous, but it's not. I mean, it is, but I think it's really important that we interrogate and criticize the expectations and the assumptions that we build into our apps, because there are a lot of implications carried by design decisions. According to Snapchat's own analysis of human relationships, it will label your relationship with the people in your friends list for you. And I think that's a really interesting choice for a messaging app to make. I think some of the Snapchat emojis are a great idea. They make the friends list more dynamic, and with the right treatment, they can encourage you to appreciate your relationships with your friends more. My 2 favorites are the smiling and the sunglasses emojis. The smiling emoji means this person is one of your best friends. I don't think it comments on whether or not you're one of their best friends, and like they're not your number one best friends, they're just, you send a lot of messages to them. Sunglasses means you two share a mutual best friend. One of your best friends is also one of theirs. It's hard to interpret either of these as negative, and the absence of either of these feels more okay because they're a little more vague. They're a little less competitive because you can have up to 8 best friends on Snapchat. And generally, the more obscure something is, the less precarious it feels, and the less exclusive it is, the harder it is to associate specific, strong feelings with it. By contrast, the heart is exclusive, well-defined, and precarious. You can only have one, or none. It's easy to lose, and you know exactly what it means to have it and to lose it. I do think the negative feelings associated with losing the heart emoji almost completely come down to the name Snapchat chose to represent this state: best friends. Colloquially, you know what best friends means. You think of it like, John and I are best friends. So when you lose it, you colloquialize it as, John and I are no longer best friends. It does feel like you are losing something that you have a real life association with. So I think if Snapchat had called this state something slightly more obscure or branded, like Snap Besties even, Snapsters, Snap Besties is good. I think that would have softened the blow a little bit because it doesn't have the one-to-one association with real life best friends. The obvious answer to this is, okay, well, being best friends on Snapchat is a very different thing than being best friends in real life. But I'm sure all of us can remember a time when a pretty innocuous indicator on a website made us have a negative psychological experience. Here's a classic: seeing a read indicator on a message, or those 3 little dots typing and then the dots go away and your friend doesn't say anything. I think we've probably all been in that experience where we have to rationalize to ourselves that our friend is probably not ignoring us. They probably just got distracted, or they didn't have time to type out everything that they were typing before they got interrupted. I've definitely been in, those frustrating situations where I just got it into my head that I said something so foolish, so not worth responding to. And then I saw my friend read the message and not respond. And then that would seal the deal for me. I would be like, I'm the worst person. Friendship over. I'm gonna write a 3-paragraph long apology text. And then I see them the next day and they're like, I am so sorry, I got in a car chase. So about Snapchat. I think I really started thinking about this because I recognized that there was this huge dissonance between the functionality I was interacting with and the experience that I was having. This is an emoji indicator in a friends list that means nothing in the larger context of me using the app, and yet it was able to make me feel bad things. It negatively affected my perception of my relationship. It made me question for a moment, are we as close as I previously thought we were? I did take it as an indicator of something that was happening within my relationship with this person before I took inventory of what I was feeling and realized that the origin was the app. And at the time, as a user experience engineer for a large software company, it was my job to kind of evaluate how our design decisions would make our user feel. Unfortunately, usually that knowledge and consideration in the tech and games industries goes toward making sure that the user feels compelled to spend as much time as possible within the app. It's applied to figure out how to make the user interact more, spend more time on the website or app, visit it more frequently, preferably daily, regardless of whether that will psychologically benefit the user. Classic example, infinite scroll. There was a time before infinite scroll. It removes the exit points and the indicators that users used to have to gauge how much time they had spent on a website. There's no more turning over to the next page, clicking over to the next, set of results. So it's a lot harder for a user to determine if they have been scrolling for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Great for Twitter. Not so good for me. The guy who invented infinite scroll has actually apologized for inventing it. He estimates that many human lifetimes every day are wasted because of the invention of infinite scrolling. Apparently there are a lot of people building extensions to actually disable infinite scroll on Twitter. That's a good move. I should do that. Why do you think Snapchat shows you an indicator when you're on fire with someone in your friends list, aka when you have been exchanging snaps for multiple days consecutively? It's to habituate you to using the app. It's the same reason that video games have transitioned toward using daily quests and energy systems. It brings you back in on a more timely schedule. Or in Snapchat's case, it's encouraging you to bring your friend back in. They show you a little hourglass indicator if your streak is about to expire. Why do they do that? It encourages you to send a snap to your friend before the hourglass expires so that you can keep your streak going. It's a messaging app. Encouraging you to send a message to your friend pulls them back into the app, using you to do it instead of a quest. I would be so surprised if the people inside of Snapchat didn't do the snap streaks to build up their daily active users. Gotta get those metrics up. That's how you get promoted. I think it's totally possible that the person who, pitched this emoji idea didn't really interrogate the possible negative consequences of having these indicators available in the app.
All right, so to be fair to the designers at Snapchat, I do want to mention that app design is a lot more complicated than UX designer says blah. A lot of features that end up in an app are mandated by high-paying clients or by executives within the company that no one has the power to overrule, or are implemented quickly without a proper design review or test phase. Choo-choo. Sometimes a feature exists because the trade-offs between keeping it and removing it are actually really complicated and the team is still deliberating. Sometimes, and I'm not joking here, a feature will literally only exist because the person who came up with it is trying to get promoted. I'm not saying that any of these conditions are necessarily true within Snapchat, except for all-powerful executives. All tech companies have those, and what they say basically goes. I'm just saying that these are common patterns in tech that end up resulting in some bad design that are a little bit out of the designer's hands.
I know this is just Snapchat using its data creatively. Like, we have all this data, what are we gonna do with it? Just knowing how big tech works, there is a huge compulsion to use data if you have it, and to present new features to the user using that data. That's like the big, sexy thing in app development. But it really is important to take these possible repercussions into account. Like, just because you have data really doesn't mean that you have to do something with it. Every messaging app knows how many friends I have sent to my friends and how many friends. Wait. Every messaging app knows how many messages I have sent to my friends and how many messages they have sent to me. They usually don't visualize it. Snapchat does inadvertently, by surfacing these indicators, make certain, social anxiety causing situations more explicit within the app. We all have these thoughts at our weakest moments. Like, what if this person who's important to me is texting this other person and leaving me out of the loop? It's just an extension of, are they hanging out without me? Are they talking without me? Which, I think is kind of an extension of, am I worth hanging out with? Do my friends think I'm fun to be around? Do my friends think that I contribute to the dynamic? And so then it's weird when Snapchat tells you, yes, he does message someone more than you. Apps can make people feel things whether they're trying to or not. The worst offender, in my opinion, is the smirking face.
Pardon the interruption. The thoughts in this video are very old. Snapchat, in the middle of me waffling on actually saying all of this and releasing it, they removed the feature that I am about to talk about. I think it was the right move to remove this feature, but I wanted to keep the draft the way that I had originally recorded it, because I think that the thoughts come across a lot better and the emotion comes across a lot better if I'm speaking about it the way that I actually felt about it at the time. So apologies for speaking about a removed feature in the present tense. Just wanted to say all of that up front. Okay, let's get back to it.
The smirking face is the Snapchat indicator for you are one of this person's best friends, but they are not one of yours. This person sends you a lot of snaps, but you send them very few. This is gross. I don't need to know this. Teehee, how sad. Your friend texts you a lot, but you don't text them. Again, that's not necessarily what's happening. Like, maybe my friend is funnier than I am, and maybe I just don't feel like I have a lot to contribute to the conversation. Or maybe they're the person who tends to send 10 snap long, epic stories, and I don't. Humans relate to faces. That's why emojis have become such a popular part of how we communicate online. Look at this face. It's over here. Look at this face. This is the emoji they chose to represent this state of data, of messages in versus messages out. To me, the expression that this face is making is saying, you hold the power in this relationship. This is not a you two have a good mutual relationship face. This is a face that does not value that friendship. This face is talking dirty about this other person. It makes me feel bad when I see it. Snapchat did the smart thing and did not make a counterpart to this emoji, aka the you send this person a lot of snaps and they don't send you very many. This person is one of your best friends, but you are not one of theirs. Good call. That would be horrible. I do have a friend who sends me a lot of snaps and I don't send him that many. And I appreciate his snaps a lot. They're really funny and they're super clever, and I just don't have a lot to say in return, but I love that he sends them to me. It does make me feel like more connected to him. And this little face, I don't need this smug little face popping up to say, haha, look how non-reciprocal this is. Am I right? I'm actually reading off of the Business Insider What Do the Snapchat Emojis Mean article. And yeah, so it says, smirk indicator. This indicates a one-way relationship, and you're the taker. Now it just sounds like you're judging me. Stop judging me, Snapchat. It looks to me like this is implying some kind of weird power imbalance in the relationship. I don't want to win at sending text messages. Like, stop trying to read into the implications of my data. The kicker is that I don't really use Snapchat anymore. It's kind of fallen out of my social media diet, but my partner still uses it. So now this smug ass face is just popping up next to his name every single time I open the app. Why? He's still my partner. We moved in together. What is this face? What's this face doing next to my partner's name in your messaging app? It just seems so weird to me that my real life relationship with this person has progressed while our Snapchat relationship has visibly regressed.
So, as mentioned, Snapchat has removed the smirking face, but what they haven't removed, as far as I can see in their support website, is the grimacing face. Here is how the Snapchat website describes the grimacing face. Your number one best friend is also their number one best friend. That's pretty cut and dry, right? But here's how Emojipedia puts it. Your number one best friend is their number one best friend. You send the most snaps to the same person that they do. Awkward. That's so interesting. This is where I think we can really see the impact of how we as humans interpret facial expressions, even digital cartoon facial expressions. Do you think they would have added awkward if it had been this face? Or this face? I'm willing to bet no. Because as far as I'm aware, there's nothing inherently awkward about two people sending a lot of messages to the same person, or even the most messages to the same person. The writers at Emojipedia read emotion into the data state because of the facial expression of the emoji chosen to represent it. This face is clearly saying, I feel awkward about this. The grimacing face is the icky counterpart to the sunglasses emoji. The sunglasses emoji means one of your best friends is one of this person's best friends. And I think that face communicates, cool, look at us, we're all buds. It's implying that the relationship is positive. But what if, instead of the sunglasses face, Snapchat had chosen this face to represent that state? Or this face? Or this face? It might have come across as, try harder, or this is unremarkable, or even, you loser.
Snapchat, I don't want you to tell me how I feel about people. Prescribing a relationship based on numbers alone, especially numbers within one service, is foolhardy in my opinion. And then going on to conflate these cut and dry manufactured relationships with real life connotations, I think that's kind of irresponsible and a little bit trivializing. Design decisions affect my experience within the app. And because the app is, in part, how I communicate with others, it affects how I experience those connections too, and that's really important. Technology has reshaped how we communicate. It has caused new social anxieties and reinforced old ones. Shouldn't we be a little bit more thoughtful about how these systems that we place in our apps might be interpreted? And we know Snapchat isn't doing this to make people feel bad. It's gamification, it's habituation, it's nothing new. It's the same reason Snapchat has streaks and those little hourglass timers that say, oh my god, you better use this service right now, or this little icon, it's gonna stop being a little icon. It's annoying that these tricks work on us, but we're just humans with our feelings and our silly brains, and stop taking advantage of our silly brains. In the attention economy, getting more eyeballs and more clicks and making people feel like there's something that they can only get from using your service, that feels critical. It feels like it's the counterpoint to irrelevance. And irrelevance is scary. But I really hope we move past this as an industry. I don't know about you, but I would rather be irrelevant than compulsive or outright negative. Hey, thank you so much for watching. This is my first time trying to do something like this, so I really hope that the audio is okay. I'm sure I will hear about it if it's not. I think way too deeply about stuff that's going on in the tech industry. It is where I spend a lot of my waking brain time. Definitely have a lot more that I want to say about how, big tech interacts with users, how big tech interacts with workers, which is an issue that is increasingly prominent, increasingly divisive and important. I also talk about media stuff, so if you're interested in any of that, please subscribe, like the video, and comment. That helps me so much, especially as I, am just trying to get started. It's still pretty new around here. We're still figuring things out, so I appreciate you for being here, and have a lovely day.